reaction to the Husky Harris run?
He hated it. He hated it. He couldn't be more unhappy about the situation, but Wyndham being Wyndham, first off, he always from the start wanted to be as far away from the cookie cutter wrestler that you could possibly be. Especially that time, everybody was wearing, a lot of people were wearing, the tights, the classic wrestling look, and that was kind of encouraged. And I was okay to go down that road, but Wyndham adamantly was like, no. And as he was saying that, they forced him into that situation, or he was put into that situation, but he didn't just lay down, he tried to make it work, but he was so unhappy at that time. But like I was gonna say, Wyndham being Wyndham, his gears were already turning on where the next step was gonna be, and I can't say for sure, but I know my brother, and I knew he was gonna be okay, regardless of how he felt in that time.
Exactly. Yeah. Obviously, anyone who knew Wyndham knew he was never going to settle with this just being his run. Now, there was a lot more for him. Natty, you mentioned in the show that Wyndham, as a kid, had a ton of personality. What was it like seeing him kind of pigeonholed into this generic role as a wrestler?
Well, I think with Wyndham, just knowing how bright and bold and how much he colored outside the lines, knowing that was him, like Taylor said, he always tried to make it work. I think he was like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever I'm given, I'm gonna try to make it work, but the wheels were spinning for him to do more. Wyndham was just always I think he was probably the most rambunctious kid I've ever met. There's a really funny story, and I always tell this story. It might be a little off topic, but I want to tell it. When we were kids, growing up, Wyndham and Taylor went trick-or-treating with us. And Wyndham was dressed up as Batman, and I remember we were all so excited to go trick-or-treating, and somehow Wyndham lost his bag of candy. And he misplaced it, he put it somewhere, nobody knew where it went. We were like, okay, Wyndham lost his candy. We had to divide up our Halloween candy. My sisters and I had to divide up our Halloween candy and make sure Wyndham got candy. So from a very young age, Wyndham was already causing problems. But it was so funny because I remember being I told Wyndham later on when we were in WWE, just starting out together in FCW, I said, my sisters and I were always so mad at you because we lost a lot of our Halloween candy because of you. And it's just, those are the funny memories that I have of Wyndham. But Wyndham was the type of person that he could make anything work. I mean, he wasn't going to be Husky Harris, but I think something like that, it only was fuel to drive Wyndham to want to be greater.
Good job. Seth, this one's for you. So you actually didn't know Wyndham during the Husky run. What are your thoughts? Obviously now getting to know Wyndham, becoming very close with Wyndham, and looking back at the Husky Harris run.
Well, first of all, we got to get you a towel. All right. Somebody got to get Big E some wipes up here, man. There you go. All right, you're listening over there. Second of all, I can't help but smile seeing that because it's so funny to watch him in that space. And you can see you can still see glimmers of that kind of infectious personality. And I remember watching NXT from afar, and Taylor, like you were saying, everybody at that time, a lot of the guys, aside from maybe John Cena with his jorts and sneakers, everybody was in boots and trunks, and it was like the Sheamus, Drew McIntyre kind of world that we were living in at that time. And I remember watching NXT, and pretty much everybody was in boots and trunks or kick pads or whatever, and it was so hard for anybody to stand out. And Wyndham, as Husky Harris, immediately, he just had this charisma about him that even in this kind of, I don't know, sterile environment that was the original NXT, he stood out like a sore thumb. He was the first person I remember as a fan watching. As a performer, I was a few years in at that point. I remember watching, thinking there's something about that guy. Like, I don't know what it is, or something about that guy. Yeah, the name sucked. The name Husky Harris sucked, no doubt about it. And it's interesting in our industry when you get saddled kind of with things that aren't in your vision. What we do and what we still do to this day often, because the creative process isn't 100% ours all the time. We're making, pardon my French, chicken salad out of chicken shit. And Wyndham, he understood that. But when you're saddled sometimes with that, it feels like the end of the world. It feels like this is it. I'm gonna be stuck with this my whole life. This is how am I ever gonna rise to the next level? But then and some people don't. Some people wither. They just crumble, and you don't ever hear from them again. But some people are special, and some people are born to be stars. And Wyndham had that, and you can see that in Husky Harris. You can see a little bit of Wyndham, a little bit of Bray Wyatt, but you always knew he was destined for much bigger and much better things.
And that is a great way to tee up our next video, because